Good morning, everybody. My name is Eamon and I represent Breakeven. The purpose, obviously, of today is to let you know who we are and what we do. And as Sharon has said, if you could very kindly, if you could just leave your questions to the end of the presentation, then I will do my very best to answer any queries you may have. I also just want to make it clear as well that towards the end of this presentation, I will be talking about a sad case where somebody actually took their life because of their gambling issues. So you may want to be aware of that, and I just wanted to make you aware in case there are any sensitivities anybody had surrounding that particular subject. So as you can see on the first slide, it just gives you our contact details. So we are, you can see us on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn and Twitter. And you can also see there is our main website, www.breakeven.org.uk. So the question you may be asking is, well, who are Breakeven? So who we are the biggest partner of GamCare, and we operate across the southeast of the UK. We have bases in East Anglia, in Essex, here in Kent, and also in East and West Sussex. And our main headquarters are based in Brighton. We've got an infrastructure in place so that once a referral is received, the client will be contacted and assessed, hopefully within the 24-hour period. And their treatment after that assessment will usually follow within a matter of days, depending on what the counsellor and what the particular client can arrange between themselves. We work with individuals, we work with couples, and we also work with groups. And the usual platforms that we conduct our sessions from would be face-to-face, via the telephone, via video calls, usually by Microsoft Teams. And also we do instant chat messaging as well. So I'm just going to now go through with you some did you know facts and figures concerning Breakeven. So as you can see, the first one there says Breakeven offers tiered and bespoke even support for anyone engaging with us. So as it mentioned in the video, we will not only work with someone that has the gambling issue themselves, but we will also work with anyone that has been affected by a gambling issue. So that could be a friend or relation, for example. Breakeven is gambling neutral and respects the wishes, aims and goals of its clients. What I mean by that is we sometimes get people that will come to us, in particular if they have the issue, and they may say to us, I have an issue with online casino games, but I can walk into a bookmaker's or I can go to a casino and I don't display any problematic behaviours. So we might say to them, would you like to just focus on what you believe is problematic and everything else sort of falls into place? Or other times they may be so frustrated and distressed by what they've done, they may want to have an absolute zero tolerance on their gambling. So they might say, well, I don't want to do any of it. I don't want to give the industry any more of my money, whether I've got a problem with it or not. I just want to completely shut it down. So whatever their aims and goals are from the therapy, we will abide by their wishes. The next one, as you can see, is Breakeven was formed in 2002 and is a partner of GamCare, GamCare being the National Centre for Problem Gambling. Now, just a little bit of background with this. Our CEO is a gentleman called Ian Semmel, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this. He actually said to me, he himself was what he described as a nutcase gambler. He was prolific. This was before the real emergence of online, and it was because of his gambling and because he came through with support and help. He decided when he came through his therapy that he wanted to pay back, as it were. He became a trained counsellor. He, with some colleagues of his that were also trained counsellors, formed Breakeven, as it says, in 2002. And they started life, or we started life, sharing an office with Relate in Brighton. It was one room, and it's grown and it's grown and it's grown, and we now have about 35 counsellors that work for Breakeven altogether. So we've come a long way, but I also think that little story illustrates that there is a big problem and there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. The next section here says Breakeven offers free treatment for anyone affected by gambling harm and offers multiple engagement platforms with no waiting lists, and we aim for instant assessment and instant treatment. We offer support groups. Currently, we've got one called Wings, and we've got another one called Green Shoot Recovery. I will talk about those two groups in more detail a little bit further on, so I won't talk too much about them at the moment. The next point here is Breakeven has the highest rating of engaged clients, which is at 82%, and the lowest rating of failed to engage clients, which is 12%, across the NGTS, which is the National Gambling Treatment Service. Just to give you some sort of idea, what the way in which the treatment works is it's a little bit like a patchwork quilt. So a patchwork quilt is made up of all little bits that makes one big quilt. And the treatment services that are offered for gambling is very similar. So as I mentioned, we cover the southeast geographically. If you go towards Hampshire, there's an organisation called Options. GamCare look after London and the surrounding areas. And if you go up to somewhere like Manchester or Liverpool, there is another group similar to us called Beacon. So we're all made up of little individual organisations, but together we are there to help people and to support them. And then just to give you some figures, Breakeven over the last 3 years, we worked with 6,990 clients across 2 tier levels of our model of care. So the tier levels are, tier 2 would be the work that we would do with someone affected by gambling, and tier 3, which will be the more intense work, that will be working with somebody that would have the gambling issue themselves. So my next slide, as you can see here, is client journey. So this is just to explain the journey that the client will go through. Hence the heading. So the first stage would be referral. So what will happen is we will usually get referrals from the National Gambling Helpline. So somebody may contact the National Gambling Helpline, explain their situation, and then what the National Gambling Helpline will do is they will find out whereabouts in the UK they are, and they will then allocate those client details to the relevant organisation. So as I said, if it's anyone in the southeast, they will be sent to us. Sometimes though, you may get people that may be living in Kent and they may Google gambling support services in Kent, and then Breakeven will come up. So in certain cases, people will also self-refer. The next stage will be, once we are given those client details, then we will try and contact that client between 24 to 48 hours as soon as we can. And what will normally happen is we will do an assessment with them over the phone. If sometimes we may need to pass it on to another organisation, that would be, for example, if we are working with somebody that has very severe mental health needs and they may need the help from the NHS as well as help with gambling, and they will then go to what we call PCGS, which is the National Health Service wing of helping problem gamblers. The next part is the treatment. So the treatment, once the client has been accepted by Breakeven, what will then happen is we will then allocate that client to a specific counsellor, and that specific counsellor will work to the best of their ability to get the client to engage ASAP as soon as there is a mutual time for both client and counsellor to work together. And as I mentioned before, those sessions can be face-to-face, video call via Microsoft Teams, telephone, and sometimes we do couples and group work as well. And then the last stage, as you can see here, is the review. So what we do is we will offer those people 8 sessions. I use the word invitation. The reason being is that with regards to the invitation, they're not tied down, they're not signing into a contract, so they can come and go whenever they want. So I say to them, you're invited to 8 sessions, you have as many of those sessions as you feel you need. If you want to walk away before the 8 sessions terminate, then that's your prerogative and we will respect your wishes. And in certain cases, we may have people that might want more than 8 sessions. There may be a need for more. And what we can usually do is get an approved extension. We can sometimes give them a total of 10 sessions, or in extreme cases, a total of 12 sessions. Once they finish their sessions, then what will happen is we will keep their information on our secure database. And what will happen 3 months after their last session, one of our operatives will contact them and ask if they would like a one-off catch-up session. The same thing will happen 6 months after that, and then a year after that will be the third and final catch-up. So we offer a service whereby we don't just sort of sticking plaster the situation. We give them the opportunity if they want to come back, or we will also monitor how they're doing and how they're getting on if they feel that they need it. So our website. So here is our website. So as you can see, we have our telephone number, a self-assessment option for them there, and they can also email us. We also have an online service, as you can see there, and they can talk to us via direct chat. And then if you look near the top of the slide, you will see you've got contact us, and you also have an option whereby if the individual is looking at our site and they are somehow compromised, then they can click on that and it will make our website disappear, so that they won't be embarrassed, or they won't be put in a difficult position by being seen to be looking at our particular site. So, next one is, there are the forms. Okay, so the next one is the Green Sheet Recovery. This was one of the groups I mentioned earlier. So Green Sheet Recovery is an online support group for those who have been gambling free for 4 weeks or longer. So that's the only qualifying criteria for them to join this group. It's a 7-week course, and each participant receives a workbook and sessions run on Microsoft Teams every Sunday between 11 AM to midday. It's free to join, as is our service. We don't receive any payments from the clients for them to work with us. And the facilitator of this particular group is a gentleman called Neil. Neil has lived experience of gambling harm, and he's one of our Brighton-based counsellors. So as you can see there, over the 7 weeks, there are 7 themes that they will discuss and talk about. Week 1 is awareness, week 2 is acceptance, the 3rd week is honesty, week 4 is challenging your behaviour, number 5 is purposeful thinking, number 6 is new thinking, and week number 7 is ongoing maintenance. And that now takes me on to WINGS. So WINGS is Women in Need of Gambling Support. Again, similar to Green Sheet Recovery, it is an online-based network, and it's run by Sally, who again is a Brighton-based counsellor. Women can talk and share their experiences, feel understood, and gain support among the group that they're within. And groups are held every Monday at 8 o'clock for affected others, and every Wednesday for those people that are experiencing problem gambling or in recovery of their problem gambling. This is about GamCare. So GamCare, as you can see here, is an independent UK charity. Now, I was saying this to Sharon, starting on April the 1st, this isn't strictly going to be true. So what I'm going to do is I'll just quickly go through it, and then I'll just let you know why this might have changed. So it says it's an independent UK charity and the leading provider of information, advice, support and free gambling for the prevention and the treatment of problem gambling. They are available by phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They also have their own website as well. And as you can see there, they are recognised throughout the UK and internationally for the work that they do with regards to prevention and education. Now, where this change comes about, at the moment, you have the NGTS, the National Gambling Treatment Service, and their financial arm is called Gamble Aware. As you can probably see behind me, I've got Gamble Aware. Gamble Aware, as I said, they hold the money, they hold the purse strings. And what is happening at the moment is Gamble Aware will pass the money down to GamCare, and then GamCare will pass the money to all the other little groups that I mentioned earlier. Now, starting from April the 1st, this is going to change because what will happen is GamCare's structure will be changed so that they will not act as the, let's call them the middleman, the financial middleman anymore. So Gamble Aware will give them their money and everybody else their money individually as well. So that's fundamentally, that's what's going to change. And so GamCare aren't really going to be our lords and masters as such as they have been. They're more going to be on an equal footing with all the other groups now, and that's the real change. So it slightly affects what is in the information on there, but not by a huge amount. Next thing here is gambling related harm. So some of these statistics may feel as though they slightly contradict each other. Some of the reason for that is because they're coming from different organisations looking from a different perspective, but also, you know, some of the timings are different. So sometimes it's something from 2018, 2020, but hopefully it will just give you some idea as to some of the figures that are going on behind the scenes regarding problem gambling. So as you can see at the top there, it says almost 13 million or 20% of the UK population experience gambling related harm, either as the gambler or as somebody that's been affected by gambling. The next thing is quite shocking. The Young People 2019, it says the Gambling Commission's school survey identified as many as 55,000 11 to 16-year-olds being considered as problem gamblers. Now, what I just need to add to that is when you think of gambling, and even when you look at the graphic that's there, there's somebody playing a machine, and that's stereotypically what we think of as gambling. It's playing a machine or going to the bookmakers, or there are those stereotypical gambling activities. With children, it can be slightly different. So if you look at, as an example, a FIFA game on PlayStation, you can buy things that are called loot boxes. So the loot boxes, you pay a certain amount to get this loot box, but you don't know what's in it. It's a hidden entity. So you could have, for example, you might have Ronaldo or Messi that you could add to your team via your loot box and therefore make your team better, and everything will be fine and dandy within your FIFA world. On the other hand, it might be a tangerine, you just don't know what is in it, but the element of gambling is there. In other words, staking something or risking something for an uncertain outcome which may or may not benefit you. So if you look at the principle of gambling, that's what the loot box does, and that's why it's considered by our industry as, even though it's not stereotypical gambling, it's a form of gambling. And some people even go as far to say as it's almost as though the industry is grooming its next generation of gamblers, because if they're playing loot boxes, then the next thing they'll do is start to gamble for real and then move on, and things will get worse from there. The last thing here, it says hidden harm. It says that in the UK, it's estimated that 6 to 10 people are impacted upon due to an individual's gambling. And I was playing around with some facts and figures, and I just wanted to share this with you because it's something that is quite graphic. There are an estimated 450,000 problem gamblers in the UK. That's quite a conservative estimate. Al Jazeera did a survey last year, and they they thought the figure was more towards 1 million or over 1 million. But if we work on the 450,000 figure, and as it says, there are between 6 to 10 people that are affected by every one of those 450,000. So if you put those numbers together, if you looked at 450,000, 6 people at least are being affected, that would give you a total of 2.7 million people that are either directly or indirectly affected by gambling. Now, to put it into a different imaginable context, the Olympic Stadium in Stratford, where they had the 2012 Olympics and my beloved West Ham United lose every week, has a capacity of 60,000. So that would mean if you were to get those 2.7 million people and put them into the London Stadium until it reached its capacity, the stadium would reach its capacity 45 times over. And that's just in the UK, and that's just with the minimum figure. So just think about that. The London Stadium, 45 times over, is filled with people that either have a gambling issue or have been affected by it. And when you think of it in that way, it's quite shocking. The next slide you can see here is talking about suicide. I did mention that later on I will focus on a particular case regarding this, but it is something that happens. And as you can see, it says that problem gamblers are 15 times more likely to commit suicide because of their gambling, and they tend to be individuals under the age of 30. An organisation called Gambling with Lives has suggested that it could be as many as 650 gambling-related suicides each year, which is a very sad and preventable situation. But as I said, I'll talk about that in a little while. Products and risk of online gambling. It says, as you can see, that 50%, there's some products, that will give a 50% higher risk of addiction. And gambling addiction has increased by 24% over the last year. When I first started with Breakeven, online wasn't really the thing that it is now. The advertising wasn't there. Just the online sites really didn't exist in the way that they do now. And if you look at the activities online, it's very instantaneous. So it will be, if you're playing roulette, for example, it will be, bet, spin, 10 seconds, next one, bet, spin, 10 seconds, next one, bet, spin. So it's very repetitive. And, you do get people that, will do 3 figures or more per spin. So because of that, because of the frequency, it does unfortunately become more addictive. Whereas back in the old days, 40 or 50 years ago maybe, you might do a football bet and you'd have to wait 90 minutes before you knew whether you had won or lost. Whereas now, as I said, the repetition is a lot more quicker and it makes it more dangerous. The last thing on this particular slide is the National Gambling Helpline, which I mentioned earlier. They receive approximately 40,000 calls from individuals or affected others who may be experiencing gambling-related harm. 340,000 problem gamblers came forward, but only 10%, only 3% of them asked to access treatment. So sometimes, as I said, sometimes you'll get people that will sign up and then they may get cold feet or not come forward. So risk factors are the next thing. So there are certain factors that make people more vulnerable to developing a gambling problem. The first one there is mistaken beliefs about the odds of winning at gambling. The next one is a big win early in their gambling history. So this does seem to happen quite frequently. A typical gambler story may be that they have a big win and it turns their world upside down. So what was impossible suddenly becomes achievable. And if they've done it once, then they think that they can do it again. And very well, most times, as you can probably tell, it doesn't work out the way they want it to. There can sometimes be personal history of drugs, alcohol, gambling, or overspending, and that can also be within the family unit as well. Um, we sometimes get people that have multiple addictions at the time, and we sometimes call it the toxic trilogy. So there's the gambling, there's the drugs, there's the alcohol. Sometimes they may be doing them at the same time. Sometimes they may say to me, well, I have an addictive personality. So I've done drugs, I've done gambling, so I've done drugs, I've done alcohol, and now I'm doing gambling. And the other thing as well is it's hidden. So if somebody is drinking too much, you can tell. There are physical signs that you can see. If someone is taking drugs, again, there are physical signs that you can see. If they're a problem gambler, there's no way of knowing. There's no physical signs to see what is going on. So sometimes the fact that it's hidden can make it more difficult. A history of mental health problems, particularly depression, can make somebody more at risk of problem gambling, and a history of chronic stress or trauma. So that may be dealing with a loss or a bereavement, for example, can sometimes trigger people or can make them turn to their gambling more more as a crutch, sorry, than they would have done before. Loneliness, chronic boredom, or lack of leisure activities. As I've said to Sharon previously, if any of you have got a smartphone, we have a casino basically in our back pocket, and that can make it very difficult for people, because if they're lonely, they feel welcomed. A lot of the sites will make a fuss of them. They will make them feel welcome. They'll make them a VIP. They'll give them bonuses. There's 50 free spins. Hi, John, haven't seen you for a while. Here's 50 free spins, or here's a £5 voucher. There's always a tie-in. Obviously, they're not going to let you know that. So it can be very difficult sometimes for people to resist. And if they get into that habit of gambling, then they almost do it without thinking about it. And as it says there, a habit of using gambling or substances to cope with negative feelings or events, and a tendency towards impulsive behaviour. So again, that kind of almost recklessness. They don't think about the responsibility or the consequences maybe of what they're doing for themselves or what they're doing to other people. And financial problems. This is a sort of a bit of a twist in the tail, I found, with financial problems, because what will happen stereotypically is somebody will think to themselves, oh, after my big win, let's say I got paid, I spent £50 of my wages and I won £1,000. Well, if I can do that on a repetitive basis, it's going to be happy days. I can maybe treat my wife to something that I normally can't do, or we can go on a holiday, or we can do something with it. And so they start to then get caught out in that cycle. And then the financial problems turn, because it's not then a case of making money, it's then a case of trying to keep your head above water. And in certain cases, I've had people that have been doing overtime just to try and keep themselves afloat. Whereas the logical part of you thinks, well, if you just didn't do what you did, you'd be okay. But by that time, of course, you've got swept up with the addiction. And the other thing there is living in close proximity to a casino can be a vulnerable factor. That's true. Location is true. But as I said a few minutes ago, if you've got a smartphone, then you've got it on your bedside table or in your back pocket. So that can make it very difficult as well. So the next thing is common beliefs. So I'm just going to go through some common beliefs. I'm due a win. Some people will look at their gambling and they will talk about it in the respect of mathematical probability, when it's bound to happen. On certain fruit machines, as an example, if you look really closely, it will say 92% payout. So people will think, oh, well, it's going to pay out fairly soon. The probability, the rate of payout is 92%. It's going to be very high. What they don't tell you is it's a 92% payout per, let's say, every 100,000 spins. So they dilute, the figures are then diluted, but people believe that, you know, I'm due a win, it's going to happen next time. Gambling is all about making money. You know, gambling, we say that, you know, gambling should be fun. We're not saying that it should be wiped off the face of the earth. What we're saying is, you know, gambling should be fun, and people need to try and be boundaried and responsible with their gambling. There are other agencies that will have a more hardline view on that, but that's Breakeven's view. And, you know, as long as people can be controlled and can be parametered with what they do, then there's no reason why gambling shouldn't be a problem. But obviously we do work with some people that, as I said earlier, they may be able to control one aspect of it, but on the other hand, they may just want to completely shut down all the gambling access they have. I almost wonder if I keep gambling, my luck will change. Sort of ties in a little bit with the I'm due a win, you know, or so close, so near, you know, so close, you know, so near and yet so far, close but no cigar. All those kind of cliches come about, and that's one of the reasons why people will keep on trying and trying and trying. If I see a certain card frequently coming up in a poker game, I should bet on it. That's another sort of misconception that ties in with the luck. And because I'm young doesn't mean I'll develop a gambling problem. To be young and to be reckless and, you know, not have mortgages and all the rest of it. And I think that does ring true. You know, young people, you know, they are more of a risk taker. They think they're going to live forever. They think everything's going to be okay. As I said, they may have a lot of disposable income, so they don't have those responsibilities. But unfortunately, all that will happen when we come and we work with them is, you know, they're young and they have huge astronomical amount of debt, and you think to yourself, how are you going to be able to live life? How are you ever going to get your own house, or how are you ever going to move forward? It can be quite a shame. And the more I'll win more if I bet more and play longer. Again, you know, that's in a way that's what the gambling industry wants people to believe. You know, it isn't the case, and they may win. You know, they may win £5,000, but I say to them, how much did it cost you to win that £500? How many near misses did you have before you get there? And as you can see, all of those assumptions are false. So my next thing here is gambling and other addictive behaviours. So there's just a few pointers to go through here. A link between gambling disorder and other disorders has been well established. As I mentioned before, you know, the toxic trilogy, sometimes people will gamble and take drugs, or gamble and be drinking. It can be very, as you can imagine, very destructive and very messy. Research suggests that there are high rates of comorbidity between substance use disorders and gambling addiction. Data from a large study in the United States found that alcohol addiction is the most frequently reported co-occurring condition among people with a gambling disorder, because it drops your inhibitions. You become more blasé and more risk-taking, unfortunately. And the last one here is just over 73% of people in the study that were diagnosed with a gambling addiction also had an alcohol disorder. The next slide, as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, I'm just going to be talking about a particular case about a young man that took his own life. So before I move on to that, I just want to give all of you a warning. And if you may find this too distressing, then maybe you just want to disconnect maybe for a couple of minutes. And I will do that now. So the next slide is just coming up. So this is a young man called Ryan Myers. The information I'm going to give you came from the Liverpool Echo newspaper back in July of 2022. Ryan, who is featured here, was 27 and was described as a happy-go-lucky character from Highton in Merseyside. Ryan had gone on a family holiday with his dad, John, and the rest of the family to Turkey. He was there for 2 weeks, and 2 days after they came back from their holiday, the father rushed to Ryan's home because a disturbing Facebook post was spotted, in which Ryan apologized for, quote, letting people down. When they got there, unfortunately, they found that he had sadly taken his own life, and there was evidence of gambling. They found a betting slip on the floor in his house, and also they later found out that he had been declined online for gambling transactions. What had also made it a very difficult situation for John and the family to face was the fact that the gambling companies had been emailing Ryan because they hadn't heard from him for the 2 weeks that he was away, and had offered him free bets and various other incentives for him to gamble. Now, unfortunately, Ryan had a gambling problem. He kept it a secret. He felt, I would imagine, maybe ashamed of what he'd done, and he sadly decided that the only way out of the situation was to take his own life. Breakeven, GamCare, and all the agencies like us are trying to say to people, we can help, and we want to try wherever possible and avoid a situation like this for people like Ryan, but also for their families and friends that have also would have been affected by what had happened. But a very, very sad story. Just before we finish, just to sort of recap, those are our contact details. And as I said, when I was talking about the referral, just to sort of recap on the referral issues, an individual can approach us either by our own website or by the National Gambling Helpline. Once we are aware that somebody wants our help, wants our help, we will assess them as soon as we can. We will then designate them to a given counsellor, and that counsellor will make provision to talk to them ASAP. We don't have waiting lists because that's the way in which we tend to work. As I said, we do the 8 sessions as an invitation. They have as many of them as they want. There is also wings and green shoots that they can do. They can either do that during their sessions, or they might want to leave it until after their engagement and use that as a bit of an add-on treatment. And then we have the catch-ups at the 3-month, the 6-month, and the 12-month stage. All I need to say is to say thank you to Sharon for helping me facilitate this, and also to thank you for your participation in listening. And if anyone has any questions, I will do my best to answer those questions for you.
Thank you so much, Eamon. Honestly, it's been a pleasure to have you. And it's so fascinating to learn about how much is involved, to be honest, and like it's just all of those things. I just wanted to add on to that as well, that you Breakeven are now on ReferKent. So if you did, there's another avenue for referrals. If you guys needed to make a referral for someone that you're working with, all you have to do is just log in, and then you'll see them on there, make a referral that way through the referral form, and it should get through to you guys. But like Eamon said, if you guys have any questions, you can feel more than happy to answer any now, and we can do what we can. Either put them in the chat, or you guys can speak and raise your hand, and we're happy to do that as well. Questions? I think you might have covered everything, to be honest.
It was that good, was it?
You were very informative.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question, please?
Yes, of course.
This is Claire Waite. So what ages can we refer? You spoke about young people, it being very common in young people. How young can they be to be referred?
Okay, We tend to work with people from 18 upwards.
Yeah.
Anyone younger than that, what would happen if they went through the National Gambling Helpline? They would automatically be referred to GamCare, and GamCare have a separate program that they can work with people that are sort of 16 or younger. But yeah, we tend to work with 18-year-olds or above.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Claire.
Can just see in the chat as well, Phil's explained that he's worked with GamCare previously when he was a care leaver,
Okay.
as well, and he said that he was really impressed with the support that you guys provide as well as part of GamCare. And yeah, as Stephen said as well, that you did a really interesting presentation. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I've got one question. So if I'm just going back on the young person's point.
Yeah.
So if like through ReferKent they were referred to you but by mistake, would you be able to forward that on, or is that not something you can do?
We would be no, we could do that. We would speak to them, and then if we were not able to work with them ourselves, we would be able to signpost them in that situation to GamCare, and GamCare would be able to help them.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I don't know if there are any other questions. I just see more comments in the chat for you, Eamon, just saying really well done on the presentation. Just thought I'd pass along the message in case you can't see the chat.
No, thank you very much. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, I was going to say as well is Eamon's passed along the leaflets for Wings and Green Shoots, so we'll be sending that out alongside the recording, so you guys can see that and pass that along to anyone who you feel would need that information as well. So that should be okay, all okay for you all. Yeah.
All I would say, Sharon, is just in case if there is anything that you kind of think about, or later on today, www.breakeven.org.uk. It's everything's there. All any information that you would need, it would be on the website, which is new and improved. So if there is anything that you think about later on, then I would just maybe recommend you have a quick look at that, and that may be able to answer your questions.
Of course. And if there is any questions that you come up with it afterwards, you can either email that, go on my website, or email us at referrkent@kent.gov.uk. We'll be happy to pass along any questions. So yeah, thank you, Stacey, for sharing the link for Breakeven in the chat. And so what I'll do is I'll stop recording now if there's no other questions, and I will let you guys get on with the rest of your day. Thank you again, everybody, for attending, and thank you, Eamon, for presenting this amazing presentation.
Thank you for all of you attending, and thank you, Sharon, for allowing this to happen, and all the help you've given me as well. Very grateful, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day.
Everybody. Take care, everyone.
Bye.